Welcome. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming this evening to our community open house meeting for the Palmdale to Burbank project section of the California high-speed rail system. We are very excited to be here this evening to give you an update on the project since our last meeting, providing ongoing information to you and the rest of our communities about the evolving planning of the Palmdale to Burbank section of the statewide high-speed rail section. We have had meetings in the past since 2014 and before, providing ongoing information, and we will continue to do so. Tonight's meeting is informational. No decisions are being made, so it's intended to give you an update on the project, and our speakers will walk you through that information so that you have the latest today. The rest of our meeting is designed to provide information across various topics, so feel free to stay with us to receive all the information on the various topics that you may have. As I mentioned, no decisions will be made tonight, and we will review that timeline for you in our presentation. So with that, I would like to introduce to you our Regional Director of the California High-Speed Rail Authority, Ms. Michelle Bain.
Thank you, Genevieve, and I definitely want to reach out and thank all of you that have come tonight to learn more about the high-speed rail project. Our ability to plan the best possible project is really dependent on us being able to have these events where we're able to talk about what we're doing and to get feedback from the communities that our project will be crossing on how we can do a better job. And we're really, really excited with what we're showing tonight. It really is a story of the progress and the discussion and the dialogue that we've had with communities over the last several years. And I want to assure everybody that what we're showing today is progress, but we also understand that there are still challenges, there are still issues that we need to address before we get to our final plan. And so we're here today to show you where we're at and to get your feedback so that we can continue to make that progress into the future. High-speed rail for California is an initiative that the state of California undertook because of the importance of transportation and mobility to the state's economy and to the state's residents in terms of their quality of life. And you can see here on this map the 800-mile planned high-speed rail system that we are working on right now. In navy blue, we have the 500-mile Phase 1 system that connects San Francisco to Anaheim and will travel through the Antelope Valley with a station in Palmdale. And you can see in yellow as well the two Phase 2 extensions, one to Sacramento in the north and one to San Diego in the south. If you overlay this system on top of a population map of the state of California, this map mirrors where the majority of the people in the state of California live. And that is really critical because what we want to do is plan a system that takes people from where they live today to other large metropolitan areas across their counties and across their communities to get to jobs, to get to school, and to get to relatives. And so that's what we really want to do. We also want to make sure and stress to everybody that what we're planning is an all-electric high-speed rail system. This is also a component of future plans that the state of California has to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions in the state. And so by bringing something all electric to our transportation system, we are able to give people a choice. Rather than drive an automobile, you may be able to take a train to get somewhere, and that is going to help basically our environment as we move into the future. So we're very, very excited about this, and we're very excited about also the opportunities to link communities that are not currently linked, to give people in the Antelope Valley the ability to take a 20-minute ride to the San Fernando Valley. Think about what that potentially unlocks in terms of your opportunities to get a job, to collaborate and cooperate with folks, to come up with new creative ideas. All of those types of things are really unlocked when you're able to close the distances between where people live today and where people may want to travel. So we're very, very excited about that particular aspect of the project as well, and to be working with communities to think about how do you maximize this opportunity for this community moving forward in the future. And of course, Palmdale is one of the communities where we have planned a station, and we're working on that, and your city is working on looking at those ways that that can maximize those opportunities. And finally, it's really important that we're building a system that complements and connects to our existing transportation system. That is the way that we can bring the most people into the transportation system and improve the majority of the people's mobility. We are building a system basically so that people who want to take a different form of transportation to get to take care of the business that they have to do on a daily basis have that choice. But it is not a mandate. This is a complement to what we have going on today. We have stations that are located in areas where other services connect to them, so people can get to those stations and make that choice to take a high-speed rail trip. So again, multiple reasons why this type of complementary and thoughtful planning makes sense, including, and the final most important reason, is that people do really enjoy living in California, and we expect our population here to grow. We expect that population to grow by 12 million people by the middle of this century from the 38 million people we have right now. So it's important that we're planning today to serve that future population. We can't wait to make those plans and bring them to fruition. One of the biggest myths about high-speed rail is, frankly, that it's not happening. And I'm here today to tell you that it absolutely is happening. We have 120 miles of the high-speed rail system in the Central Valley under construction right now today. And you can see here on this slide pictures of those construction sites. If you have an opportunity and you drive up the 99, you will see those construction sites underway right now. This project is happening. And it is a big project. Obviously, it takes a lot of work to do this project. So we have businesses and people from around the state working to design and build this project. We have steel coming to this project from the Inland Empire down here in Southern California. We have one of the major contractors working in this project with a headquarters in the San Fernando Valley. So people from across the state are coming together to build the high-speed rail, and that's really exciting. It's really exciting for our kids to be able to see a project of this magnitude come to fruition, and gives them ideas and thoughts about the types of things and careers that they can take up in the future. So what are we doing here in Southern California while we're building that portion in the Central Valley? You can see here on the map the sections in the Southern California area. These are the sections we're working on planning and taking through environmental clearance right now. We want to identify the routes, basically where this project is going to go on these Southern California routes over the course of the coming months and years. So we start in the Bakersfield area, and our alignment goes from Bakersfield into Palmdale. We're crossing the Tehachapi Mountains. We have been advancing that project, and we have a lot of meetings going on very similar to this on that project. It's about 80 miles. Then we have Palmdale to Burbank, obviously the section that we're here today to talk about. that particular section you can see in the map. We're still looking at several alternatives, working towards picking what the best alternative would be. We have not made that selection, and that's why we're out and continuing this dialogue so that we can someday make that best selection. Then we go from Burbank to Los Angeles Union Station. That's about 15 miles, and then we go from Los Angeles Union Station down to Anaheim, where the terminus of our Phase 1 system is. In the future, we will also have a Phase 2 system serving Los Angeles Union Station, the Inland Empire, and San Diego. So this is about 330 miles of the overall 800-mile plan system that we're working diligently to plan here in Southern California. Whoops. So specifically about the Palmdale to Burbank section, again, it's 35 to 45 miles long, depending on which of the routes. We showed you that there were, at a high level, several routes that we're looking at. We want to connect the Antelope Valley to the San Fernando Valley with fast, smooth transportation service. Some of you who may know, if you want to take a trip from the Antelope Valley, depending on what time of day it is, and get down to the San Fernando Valley, that's a trip that could take you 2 hours or maybe more. I mentioned it earlier. This is a trip on high-speed rail from the Palmdale station to a Burbank station that would take you 20 minutes, possibly less, depending on which route we choose. We have stations at both ends, obviously one in Palmdale and one in Burbank. And of course, we pass through really, really diverse communities, right? We have high desert communities, we have equestrian communities, we have the suburban and the very urban area in the San Fernando Valley. We cross a mountain range, the San Gabriel Mountains. So we've got a lot of things to consider as we're coming up with the best possible route here. And we have established basically a process and a graphic here to help people understand what are we doing, how do we evaluate and move forward with the selection of the routes. And really, we have to balance three major considerations as we bring these routes to fruition. In the first place, we've got the project objectives. We have to build a safe train. No questions about that. We have to build a fast train. That is our mandate. We have to put stations in locations where the most riders will be able to get on the train in order to make sure that we're really serving the population of California. So those are the things that the engineers and the technical folks generally are looking at. Then we have the environmental resources. We want to make sure that we're protecting our wildlands, we're protecting our water, we're protecting our environment. And we work with resource agencies to make sure that what we're planning is representative of the best way to protect those. And not by accident, then the third component that comes into the mix is the communities. And we need to work with the communities to understand the character of the communities that we're traveling through and make sure that the project that we're designing best complements that existing character of that community. It's important for us to know basically how do residents of that community get from one side of the community to the other. You know that you all have those shortcuts that you take or that special restaurant that you go to that only locals are at. We need to know those things so that we can make sure that those things are still open to you in the future as we have high-speed rail coming in and integrating into your community. And so how do we do this? Well, we do a lot of work, right? We have engineers, we do a lot of studies. You can see a video in the back that talks about some of the drilling, the information we're gaining about the mountain range so that we can understand how to design tunnels. But we do a lot of communication with our communities up and down the alignment. And here you can basically see a record of all of the recent discussions that we've had with the community up and down the Palmdale to Burbank section in order for us to understand what we need to know to really do the best job to build this. So you see we've talked to over 3,500 people over the course of the last several years. We certainly make our presentations in Spanish and English and many other languages up and down so that we're really reaching all of the communities that this project crosses. And what's really interesting about this project is what happens when we do this. This is what happens when we do this. When we started, whoops, I got too excited there. When we started in 2010, you can see the planned routes that we had to get from Palmdale all the way down to the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles. And you can see it looks different again in 2012 because we went out and we got feedback and we went and we did technical and engineering work and we talked to resource agencies. And then you can see again in 2014 and again in 2014 and again in 2015 and today in 2016. This is the evolution of this project that happens when we employ that balancing act that I talked about. And again, we know today that there are still areas of this section and this alignment that we need to have conversations about. And there's still things to do that we want to roll our sleeves up and accomplish before we are ready to say this is the route that we recommend for building the high-speed rail system. So at that, I will turn it over to Project Manager Juan Carlos Velasquez to talk a little more specifically about that.
As Michelle mentioned in that previous slide with the evolution of the routes, we recently completed the most recent evolution of those, and that was in April. We completed a alternatives analysis study, and you see the cover there on the map. This is available on our website. We presented it to our board of directors as an update to the project of what this most recent evolution is of the alignment alternatives. And so in the next few slides, I'm going to just kind of walk through the changes from 2015 to 2016 and how we got there. I'm really focused on those three circles that Michelle had talked about: the community, the project objectives, and the environment. So as we develop those alternatives, we keep those things in mind. And with this recent alternatives analysis, our objectives, we tried to meet those objectives of improving the project engineering and the geometry and alignment, and also trying to reduce what the environmental, the potential impacts to environmental resources were, and also looking to how to reduce potential impacts to communities. So I'll kind of walk through them. So in this map, you'll see the darker line, which is our new evolution route, and then the lighter line was what was done previously in 2015. You can see how this route has changed. Again, we had those goals, those objectives that Michelle talked about of the engineering objectives, reducing impacts to the environment and the community. And with on this particular route, we had some challenges with crossing at the Santa Clara River, some potential impacts to some communities in the northeast San Fernando Valley. So we looked at this, and again, you see some of the results of that. We have an improved crossing of the river, again, reducing impacts on that environmental circle. This route is now shorter, so that improves our travel time, helps us meet our project objectives. And it also, you can see it avoids some communities of environmental justice concern in San Fernando Valley. So this change met the objectives of all three of those objectives. With the E1 alternative, again, we were looking at, with that same vein, how can we improve this alternative with improving the geometry, looking at the design and how we can make it a little bit better. And so that was the result of that is, you see that here, where we were looking at ways to travel through the mountains better, in a better location through the tunnels. This also, we looked at, again, were there ways to reduce potential impacts to some communities. You can see here on the map, we had two routes in the Acton area, and now one on the, oh, this doesn't work on the screen, but at the upper land there, you see that there was two lines, the screened out line and the solid line. We reduced that down to just the one line to reduce impacts to the communities in those areas as well as environmental resources in that area. We also reduce the potential impacts to the Bootlegger Canyon area, which is the upper reaches of the Soledad Canyon. Again, reducing impacts to the environment in that area as well as communities. And then finally with the E2, again, we made some refinements here, particularly at the crossing of the mountains, where you see when in Acton again, where we have some refinements similar to the previous slide at E1. We also adjusted the southern end to reduce impacts to a wash for environmental resources and community concerns that were there as well. So again, all of these alignment improvements try to meet those three different objectives. And with that, I will pass it to Kavita Mehta, who is our environmental manager, to talk about the environmental process moving forward.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. So this is the environmental process, and it shows where we are in the environmental process. The authority and FRA, they updated scoping for the Palmdale to Burbank section in 2014 and continue to develop conceptual routes. As Juan Carlos discussed, these routes have been refined over the years to give us the alternatives that we are currently analyzing in detail. Little down? Okay, sure. Is this better? Okay. So we have collected extensive data on the three alternatives that we are analyzing. And right now, we are doing environmental and engineering analysis on these alternatives. Based on this detailed analysis, the staff will recommend a preliminary preferred alternative. The board may concur or they may modify the preliminary preferred alternative, and the preliminary preferred alternative will be included in the draft environmental document that will be released for public review. So this process of identification of a preliminary preferred and releasing that with the draft environmental document, that is different than the process that we were previously following. This process allows for, it's positive from a public outreach perspective because it allows detailed review of the preliminary preferred alternative. It gives an early indication of which alternative the agency is leaning towards. And also, it allows the public to comment on the preliminary preferred alternative. So while there would be a preliminary preferred alternative identified in the draft document, all the three alternatives that we discussed will be analyzed in an equal level of detail in the draft document. And just to give a little bit of background on why there is this change in identification of a preliminary preferred now in the draft document, there are changes at the federal level in regulations and policy at the federal level, which requires FRA, the federal lead agency on this project, to identify a preliminary preferred in the draft document wherever it is feasible. So that is the reason that we are doing this. So after the draft is released, we will be having public hearings, and that would be, again, an opportunity for the public to provide comments. We will receive public and agency comments. We will prepare responses to the comments that we receive, and all of these responses will be included in the final environmental document that will be released. And after the final environmental document, that will be followed by approvals. So these are the 20 different technical areas that we are analyzing in detail in the environmental document for all the three alternatives. So we are doing technical studies, data collection for all of these 20 different areas, for all the three alternatives, and all this analysis will be presented in the draft document when it is released for public review. One, just as an example, one area is geology and soils, and we also have a station at the back which talks about our current effort of data collection related to geology and soils. So if you have not had a chance, I would encourage for you to take a look at that station. We are currently doing GI investigations, geotechnical investigations in the Angeles National Forest. The authority has a special use permit from the Forest Service to conduct these investigations. And what you see on the slide right now is the location of these investigations within the forest. And on the left, what you see is the depths to which we are doing these investigations and collecting the samples. So this is just one of the examples related to geology and soils that we are doing the investigations on and collecting information. This will inform the engineering and environmental analysis. But the previous slide that I showed, we are doing analysis for all the 20 different areas. So this shows the timeline for the Palmdale to Burbank section. We had the supplemental alternatives analysis released earlier this year in April. That gave us the 3 alternatives that we are currently analyzing in detail. We will have the initial preferred alternative identified early next year. The draft environmental document will be released in spring of 2017. And then final environmental document will be completed by end of 2017. And with that, I will hand it over to Henno.
Thank you very much, Kavita. That was quite a bit of information that we presented to you. Information about where we've been, how the project has evolved and changed over time to get to the point where we are today. The specific 3 alternatives that are currently being investigated and studied, analyzed, and will be published next year in detail for you all to further comment on what your opinions and thoughts are about what is being proposed. We outlined the process that we have used and are using in order to get to a decision point, and we very, very much would like you to continue to participate with us in this process. It's been a long set of years. It's been a very important process, but as Michelle, Juan Carlos, and Kavita emphasized, none of that would have been possible without community input and involvement. This agency, the California High-Speed Rail Authority, is accountable for the legal process and community process and environmental input that it takes in order to achieve a successful project alternative. What you see here is our information of how you can continue to stay involved with this project. Today's meeting is informational, and all of it is available on the authority website. I would encourage you to view it at your convenience, and I want to thank those who have been online watching this presentation to also visit our website, obtain any of this information there. It is available 24/7, and your comments are welcome 24/7 to continue to stay engaged with this project. It absolutely does make a difference. The project would not have been able to evolve to the improvements and refinements that we have today without community input. Would very much encourage you to do that. As Kavita mentioned, the public document will be released next year, and that will be a more formal period where we would obtain additional formal public comment, and we'll continue to stay in touch with you about that period. You can reach us on the website, call us on the helpline, the email is there, or write us anytime. And again, I would like to thank you for tonight's coming to tonight's presentation and encourage you to stay involved with the California High-Speed Rail program as we move forward. Thank you very much.